Before we get started, if you're a leader who wants to protect decision quality, energy, and long-term performance, you'll find everything I referenced today linked in the show notes. That includes my executive capacity audit, the executive longevity community, and the link to book an executive longevity strategy call with me. Welcome to Longevity Unlocked. I'm Sherrie Austin, registered nurse and executive longevity advisor. And this podcast is for leaders who refuse to trade their health, clarity, or decision quality for success. Here's what we do differently. We don't talk about hustle. We don't chase optimization for optimization's sake. And we don't wait for burnout to intervene. This is where we examine the physiology behind leadership, how sleep, stress, nutrition, movement, and recovery directly shape cognitive capacity, emotional regulation, and long-term decision quality. The truth is, most leadership risk doesn't come from lack of skill or intelligence. It comes from quiet capacity erosion. You know, the kind you normalize because nothing is technically broken. Each episode is designed to help you think more clearly under pressure, lead with greater range and resilience, and build a longevity strategy that protects both your performance and your future self. Let's get into it. If you're a high-performing leader who knows there's more available, more clarity, more energy, more strategic depth, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the productivity myth. Working longer isn't working better. Okay, and let me tell you, I had to learn this the hard way because high performers, we are perfectionists. We want to get it all right. We want to do it all things. And for me, chomping down a huge calendar with inhumane amount of tasks that I know that can't get done in a day, that was like a goal for me. I wanted to get that done. So I hope y'all don't hear the hum of this fan, but if you do, hey, this is what it is. This is welcome to the 50s. Anyway, so I thought that that was what was sustainable, but I realized it's not. It's being a good steward of your body. It's having a recovery infrastructure. It's setting non-negotiable boundaries. Because when I started setting non-negotiable boundaries around my recovery, my capacity increased. I became more efficient. My strategic thinking broadened, and I was able to handle this next super busy season of my life that is probably going to be busy for the next 8 quarters. You heard what I said, 8 quarters. And that just leads me into that capacity is physiological. What do you mean, Sherrie? I mean, the recovery infrastructure is how you stabilize. It's basically stabilizing your physiology so that you can protect your decision quality, so that you can execute and perform and have cognitive capital and executive judgment. So what does that entail? Okay, it entails your sleep. That is the baseline foundation. And I've said it before and I said it again. And I'm going to say this all the time, every time you hear me, recovery infrastructure. When I say it has expanded my capacity, and capacity, executive capacity is just your ability to be efficient, to think strategically, while maintaining a demanding load, that's executive capacity. And you cannot do that in a fatigued body with brain fog. And we have to realize that sleep is just not a reward for a hard day's work or just when you drop because your body just cannot sustain anymore. The purpose of sleep is basically to clean up the cellular debris in the body and to repair it and to basically make you new again for the next day. So basically think of sleep as the pre-meeting before the next day, before the big day. And athletes don't have problems with that. A matter of fact, athletes will tell you that that's when they're seeing the gains in their performance when they take recovery days. They're not practicing 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. They're taking breaks in between. They're getting massages. They're doing ice baths. They are shoring up their nutrition. They are doing the things that they need to do to make sure that their body is performing at an optimal level. So why are we not doing that for our brains? Because leaders, CEOs, senior leaders, that's what you get paid for. That's where stewardship is. You stewarding an organization. It starts with stewarding yourself. Your cognitive capital is what they pay you for. You have team members to take care of the physicality of the job, but it is your cognitive capital that runs the ship. You man the ship, and sleep is the foundation to do that. When we're sleeping, and I've said this over and over again, and I'm going to say it again and again and again and again, you clean up cellular debris in the brain. That's through the lymphatic system and cellular detoxification throughout your entire body. That is the purpose of sleep. And there's different cycles because different cycles do different things. Deep sleep, that is the street sweeper of the body. That's the cleaning crew. They come in and they make everything new again. And all the garbage, they get rid of that, they dispose that. Then after all the garbage is cleared up, REM runs in and he said, oh, we got to make sure that memory consolidation is there, that we're keeping those neural pathways open. Neuroplasticity is basically the neural pathways of the brain. And you can actually change that and shape it and mold it, kind of like Play-Doh. So that's what REM comes in and do and helps you to make sure that you can recognize patterns. So that is the purpose of sleep. Now that we're talking about neurology and neuroscience, let's talk about stress. If you are running on cortisol, if you are wired and tired and stressed out, your leadership is going to start to decline. You are going to be making poor decisions. And this is the invisible burnout that people don't recognize. And I talk about this all the time. The loud burnout when somebody's screaming or just totally breaking down, having panic attacks and all the things. Yeah, that's when they're in burnout. But what happens before that? You're a little snappy, a little emotionally reactive, having brain fog, tasks that you used to just doop, 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 doop. Now takes forever and ever and ever. You're reading the same stuff over and over, like you're reading it in a different language. Nothing is computing. People are talking to you. It sounded like the Charlie Brown teacher. Womp, 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 womp. Our body, there's a reason when we have REM sleep, it's to help us with pattern recognition. When you're stressed, you don't have the tolerance for ambiguity. So you go back to what the familiar patterns are. That's what stress does to you. So you're basically a firefighter. You're a firefighter in your life because your physiology is on fire. You're a firefighter in the company. A lot of times you make yourself the bottleneck because you can't think strategically enough to set systems in place to say, okay, these are the decisions that go upstream that I make, and everything else is downstream. Middle management can handle that. But you can't differentiate it because your cortisol is constantly elevated. You're constantly in firefighting mode. Everything is urgent. Everything is emergency. Everything is now because you have no system in place, because you're tired and you're stressed. And what can we do to relieve some of that stress? What I do for me is I purposely and intentionally, because recovery infrastructure is only created when it's intentional. You're not going to fall into a recovery system. You have to intend it. Anything in your life, just like you intend, and you have meetings for financial planning and meetings for hiring and meetings for different projects and meetings for whatever it is that the organization needs to grow and to develop. Well, that's what your recovery infrastructure is. So I start with my day, which is non-negotiable. Everything in my recovery infrastructure is non-negotiable. So non-negotiable for me is I wake up, I pray, I meditate, and then as soon as it's daylight outside, I will go outside for a 10-minute cognitive reset. A lot of times I like to take 20, but if I'm working, 10 is all I'm going to get, and that's good enough. And I'm not listening to any podcasts. I'm not listening to any music. I'm not talking on the phone to anybody. I am just resting. So like I said earlier, I like to take cognitive resets, 10 minutes, no TV, no podcast, no radio, no talking on the telephone, none of that. Just walking 10 minutes in silence, reducing the inputs, because we live in a world now where we're getting inputs from before we wake up. That's why I make it a habit to not look at my phone. I mean, I look at it a little bit to track my sleep and all that, but I'm disciplined enough that I don't get into the doom scrolling of social media. And I don't look at my phone because you're bombarded with emails. Now we have constant 24-hour, 7-day-a-week availability. And if you touch that phone, somebody is already managing your day. You're jumping out of bed and shooting your cortisol up sky high. So that is something that I don't do. I do cognitive resets. If I have important meeting, important decisions, something like that, I have a cognitive reset honestly before it. And then right after it, I have another cognitive reset. And that could, like I said, it could be a 10-minute walk. Sometimes I get in my massage chair and I'll stay in there for 15 minutes. Sometimes I just create white space. I will literally lay on the floor underneath the fan and I put my timer on for 11 to 15 minutes and I just lay there in complete silence, decreasing the inputs to my brain. So that's basically what I do to mitigate my stress. You could box breathe. You could take a quick guided meditation, just a silent meditation. There's so many things that you can do to just recover. And I institute that during the day. So I don't give my nervous system a chance to get dysregulated, because if you let it, your emotions will be like a roller coaster, up, down, up, down, up, down. And you don't want that. You want to stay as stable as possible. And when that infrastructure is there, even when challenging things happen, this weekend has been extremely emotionally challenging for me. But because I had that infrastructure in place, I was able to shake off the emotions and complete the things that I needed to complete because that's there. And a lot of times when we don't have stress management practices in place, then it derails everything that we have to accomplish. And when you are the leader or founder in your company, that could end up being catastrophic if you're unable to manage your stress levels, because you can make decisions that can become catastrophic to the company and the organization and halt your leadership immediately. And then, of course, there is nutrition. We have to fuel ourselves. And I had to look at it, especially for women. Most women I know are always on a diet trying to lose that last 10, 15, 30, 50 pounds. And then you have perimenopause and menopause hitting you at the same time, just fighting against you. So nutrition can be challenging, but this is not the time to starve ourselves out, especially if you're in perimenopause or in menopause or you're postmenopausal. Because and intermittent fasting worked for me well in my 30s. And sometimes now I will do it because the benefits of it, autophagy, cleaning out the mutative cells in the body, helping to stabilize your metabolism, all of that is great. But because of hormonal dysregulation, sometimes that's not the best thing, starving yourself out, because all you do is keep your cortisol levels raised because your body is thinking, I'm in starvation mode. God built us to survive. That's why back in the day, you read in the Bible times, and they would have famines for almost a decade. And you still have a bunch of people living. You still have women making babies and all of the things, because we were meant to survive. So when we cut our calories to the point that it becomes unhealthy, our body just will hold on to whatever little bit we're eating. So we're unable to release weight. It shoots up our cortisol. Our adrenals are working overtime. So you want to fuel your body. You want to have protein forward meals. What I do, because a lot of times I wasn't intentionally trying to intermittent fast, but because my schedule is so busy, I have long commutes, I do a lot of traveling, it was hard for me to sit down and get in a meal. So now in the morning when I get up, I have a protein shake and protein coffee. I set my protein coffee throughout the day, and I have my protein smoothie when I get up in the morning. Then a couple of hours later, I will have a 30 to 40 gram protein forward meal. And then I used to, of course, in your 30s, your metabolism is good. You're not having hormonal dysregulation. So I was big into fasted cardio. But once you hit perimenopause and menopause, all you do is elevate your cortisol level, inflame your body, and you're doing more damage than good. I love, swear by HotWorks. HotWorks is a gym that you go to where you work out in 125-degree infrared saunas. And I would hydrate because I went the first time and just had cold water. Oh, baby. I came out of there feeling like a wet rag, limp. I mean, I was in my mind like, how am I going to get to my truck? How am I going to even drive home? I mean, I had like no energy. I felt like a puddle of water. So I would bring Gatorade Zero because it has some electrolytes. That still wasn't doing it. And I would still be waking up with intense Charlie horses down both of my legs. I wanted to I was screaming. It wakes me up out of my sleep. And so I started getting the electrolyte packets and drinking that after HotWorks, and that helped a lot, but I still felt depleted because I'm going in there after a long day and working out in 125-degree infrared sauna for 1 hour and 15 minutes underfueled. So now I notice that when I have a healthy carb, which is usually for me some type of fresh fruit, it's summertime, so I'm definitely into cherries, just and berries, and then I will have a half a sandwich and go. I feel when I work out, I feel good. I'm not feeling as depleted, and I'm able to go home and get into my nighttime routine and get into bed without feeling so totally depleted. It's all I could do to just walk to my truck. And this is how we feel throughout the day, because if you're waking up, you're just drinking caffeine, or energy drinks, and you're slamming through the day, and then you don't meal prep, so you don't have a healthy meal with you, and you're just slamming down crap, you're wondering why at 2 p.m. you're in a slump on your desk. You're having brain fog. You can't concentrate anymore. You have extreme decision fatigue. You're having decision friction because not every little decision is bothersome to you. So that is healthy, not just to get through the day, it's healthy for your health span and your leadership span, because you cannot be an effective leader for the long term if you're not properly fueled. If you have constant brain fog, constant fatigue, constantly emotionally reactive, constantly stressed, because that behavior trickles down throughout your organization. And like I said before in another episode, it's kind of like when you grow up, when your parents say, don't do what I do what I say, don't do what I do. Well, most people, they're going to do what you do and not what you say. So if you're wired and tired, you're constantly available, you're not taking lunches, you're not taking breaks, you're not recovering yourself, that is the culture. That is the behavior that spreads throughout the organization. That becomes the culture of the organization. Then you have to worry about people that are presenteeism. They're there, their body's there, but their mind's not. So you got a team of working zombies, or your retention is going to start to fall off, because in the day and age that we're living in, and with AI, there's more entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, consultants than ever before. They said by 2050, half of the workforce is going to be more consultant and project managers and solopreneurs. So people are sitting there, they're probably thinking to themselves, I could package my knowledge and work for myself than to be in an environment that is emotionally and physically depleting to my system. So that's the importance of nutrition. It's important for you as a leader, for you personally, and the habits, the good habits and that you maintain, the recovery infrastructure that you intentionally have, that trickles down throughout the organization. Because again, people are watching what you do, not listening to what you say. Most communication is nonverbal anyway. We are vibrational creatures. So we're going to pick up on your vibes before we pick up on your words. Then there's movement. Movement helps with stress management. It helps release cortisol. It helps regulate your nervous system. It helps with your cardiovascular system, which is your heart health. It helps with your lungs. It helps overall. And this is part of your recovery infrastructure. The recommendation, especially for my women, so I'm talking to you, men is probably the same. I'm sure that you have testosterone, so your bodies can handle a little bit more strength training. And it's still good for men to strength train too, because as women are going through perimenopause and menopause, and we're just now talking about it. Generations before, they weren't even talking about it. It was a dirty little secret. I hardly ever hear health and wellness gurus or even medical professionals, doctors, talk about andropause. So that is the male equivalent to menopause. And no one talks about that. So as you're aging, you're spilling androgens and testosterone. So you need strength training to slow down or curtail the loss of testosterone in your body. And women need it too. A lot of women hesitate when you start saying weightlifting because they think that all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we're not going to lift any weights. I'm going to look like, a muscle bound guy. Unless you're taking something to accentuate that, you will never look like that. You don't have enough testosterone in your body to maintain that, but you do need that. We need that because everybody, whether you're male or female, every decade of life, you are losing 3 to 8% of muscle mass. So in order to curtail that, you need 2 days a week minimum of strength training. And as you go into your leadership space, because again, stabilizing your physiology is what lengthens your leadership, You want to lead for decades, not quarters. So, and you want to be in good health to do that. So, especially in our muscles, they now have research that says that they're looking at the thigh muscles as indicators of longevity health. So if you're not working out, you're not doing strength training, you're not doing weight training, and you're not walking around, your legs get weak. Your muscles start to atrophy. That means they get smaller. And then people don't understand, wow, all of a sudden I need a walker. I can't walk anymore. I need a wheelchair. And they don't understand why. But if you don't use it, you lose it. It's a muscle. You have to continue to use it. So it's important. Plus, you start ending up with lower back problems from, especially if you have a sedentary lifestyle or a sedentary type job. You need to just make it that every 50, 55 minutes you get up and you just walk around for 5 minutes, even if it's just walk to the bathroom, get some water and come back. You'll be surprised what that does for you. So movement is very important. And that puts together your entire recovery infrastructure. And that's what I've been non-negotiable about, because a lot of times we don't prioritize our recovery. We don't prioritize our sleep. We don't have anchored sleep times. For me, mine have to be flexible because my schedule is very fluid. So I don't have anchored times because the jobs that I do and my schedule is different from day to day. So what I do is I have anchored routines. So I know that when it's starting to get dark, I have ambient lighting. I put on my Blu-ray blocker glasses. That tells my body that it's nighttime. The sun is going down. I don't want anything that's going to block the melatonin in my body because we need that for restful sleep. That's why when the sun comes up, I get up in the morning and I do a cognitive reset. Not only does it stabilize my nervous system, it sets my circadian rhythm. It lets me know that it's daytime, cortisol goes up, keeps me awake. Then as the sun is coming down, okay, it's evening, melatonin comes up, cortisol goes down. It's time for me to get prepared for bed. Then I'm constantly, intentionally in my day, scheduling cognitive resets. And I have morning meditation, morning journaling, evening journaling. And evening journaling for me is especially important because you want to dump out all that stuff from the day so you're not thinking about it in your sleep. And you may not realize that, but also when we're sleeping, that's when our subconscious is doing problem solving for us. You don't want your subconscious problem solving. So it's better to just journal, get it out on paper, dump it all out, and then you can get into a restful sleep. And I have a whole routine, lights low, I'm journaling, I'm listening to meditative music. I may pre-review my schedule for the day just so I'm not jumping up in the morning in a panic, wondering, what did I forget? Everything's already set. I have systems in place so that I can reduce decision fatigue and decision friction. Then again, like I said, you want to fuel your body. We are not robots. We need to eat. We need to drink. We need to rest. That's how our bodies thrive. That's the optimization for the human being that we are. And we have to remember we are human beings. We're not human doings. And sometimes we just need to be in the moment, be present. Then movement. Because like I said, you want to lead as long as possible. I personally right now don't intend to retire in the traditional sense. I plan to work for as long as God gives me breath. And I cannot do that if I am neglecting movement and I'm unable to move. I mean, we have to realize that our health is our wealth and that our souls prosper as our health prospers. That's why movement is so important. Because like I said, it really optimizes every system in the body. So that's the recovery infrastructure. Now, this is my own realization. When I started this, and I go through this in the Executive Longevity Lab, which is part of the Executive Longevity community, I'm going through the messy middle with you. I don't have this down pat. I used to try to do the anchored sleep times, doesn't work for me. Then I realized my body works on a biphasic time schedule, which means prior to the industrial era, most people had biphasic sleep schedules, which means you sleep for 4 hours, you're up for 1 or 2 hours, then you go back to sleep for 4 more hours. And then we didn't have jobs where you clocked in to the job, the corporate, back then it was factories. We didn't have that. So you can get 8 hours of sleep even though it was interrupted. That's what biphasic sleep is. Well, if you have a corporate job and you go to bed at say 10 o'clock and you get up at 2 o'clock, and then you're up till 4 and your body feels sleepy at 4, but you have to now be back up because you now need to get ready because who knows how long your commute is. You have to drive in. You don't have the pleasure of working remotely. You don't get back to sleep. So then your sleep cycle is shortened. So I had to look at all of that. And that's why I had to have anchored routines. And then I have to take strategic naps on some of my longer days that I'm not getting my full 7.5 hours. That's the sweet spot for me. So I was already busy working, traveling, because I travel a lot for my job. And then I have a business. And then MP school entered the chat. And this is graduate school, so it is no joke. So with that, I had to really be intentional about my recovery infrastructure. And I realized that when I doubled down and became non-negotiable. I set those boundaries. Ooh, if you would have told me a year ago that I will be able to manage and enjoy, because that's the thing. We only have this present day. We plan for the long haul, just like you have an investment portfolio to plan for your retirement, and God willing and God blessings, you make it there, but we may not. So the day, the present is a gift. So not only is my schedule demanding, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the journey of growing my business. I'm enjoying the journey of MP school. I'm enjoying when I'm at work. I'm enjoying all of it. And I feel invigorated because I had the appropriate recovery infrastructure in place. And I realized that when you have a recovery infrastructure, you go from managing your life or your company to being a steward of your company. So the stewardship mindset is recovery is stewardship, and boundaries create capacity. So what isn't scheduled isn't kept. In the same way we are non-negotiable about our calendars at work, we need to be non-negotiable about our recovery infrastructure. I've learned to say no. I've learned to not overwork. I've learned to say, this is what I have the capacity for. And that's part of my morning routine every morning and part of my recovery structure. I wake up in the morning because some nights I sleep beautiful, wake up and I'm like, yes. And some nights sleep is not the greatest. I'm in menopause. Sometimes I don't get the night sweats as much because, I have systems in place that has abated a lot. But this frozen shoulder, ooh, baby, nobody can tell me about this here joint pain. And that is not always the best, and it wakes me up. So my sleep can sometimes be a little challenging and choppy. And then I have to go back and ask myself, what do you have the capacity to manage today? And then I go back to my list when I'm done with my morning routine and I say, okay, these are the top priorities that has to be completed today. Everything else is going to have to be a nice to do, would be great if I could, but it's going to be pushed over to tomorrow. Priorities, recovery infrastructure, and that is it. So here's some strategies that I do that I'm going to suggest to you. Strategy 1 is do a personal capacity check-in. In the executive longevity community, we do a capacity check-in every Monday. And it's just before the week begins, before you leave your house, after you've had your quiet meditative time. Just check in with yourself. What do I have the capacity for this day? What does my week look like? Then pick one habit per week to begin building your recovery infrastructure. It could be, I'm going to start with making sure that my sleep routine is in place. I would suggest that because that's the most foundational, because usually if you can get your sleep routine together, everything else will fall into place a little bit easier. But hey, start whatever is the most challenging for you. It could be your diet. Maybe you don't like to meal prep or you don't have time. And if you don't have time, they have so many meal delivery services out there that prepare healthy meals for any diet, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, keto carnivore, low fat, low sodium, heart healthy, Mediterranean, paleo, whatever. There is a meal delivery service that will be able to meet your needs. And that cuts down on decision fatigue. You can just grab it out the fridge or out the freezer. Boom, you have a ready fresh meal. You know you're getting something healthy in your body. One less decision you have to make. Every time you can take something off your plate, that reduces decision fatigue and decision friction. So think about that. Maybe it's your meal planning. Maybe it's working out. And if you don't have a gym membership or you're not a gym type of girly or guy, that's cool. You could do strength training at your desk. You can get up every 50 minutes and do 10 squats at your chair. You could do some arm lifts, leg lifts, ankle pushes, pedal pushes. I mean, it's so many things that you can do. I mean, it's really, they call it NEAT because it goes towards your non-exercise activity, but something that I do in the bathroom 4 days a week, usually on Mondays and Thursdays, is upper body. So I'll do wall push-ups. Well, right now, because of the shoulders, and I really injured them bad last year. Every time I try to go back to the gym because I'm an overachiever, instead of taking it slow, I still go back in there and I'm doing body pull-ups and lats and all the things and just tearing up my poor little trapezius and rhomboids. So I do a lot of shoulder mobility exercises right now. And I just re-entered the gym. So I'm taking it real slowly because I'm tired of being on the sick and shut-in list from the gym. So yes, you could do wall push-ups. I do shoulder circles and shoulder rolls just to keep the mobility and help it keep it from being frozen. And then Tuesdays and Fridays, I do squats when I go to the bathroom. And I do Kegels every time I use the bathroom because, ladies, let me give you a little secret for my perimenopause and menopausal women. As we are losing hormones, we have genital urinary issues and our pelvic floor drops. Now, they do have physical therapists to help with your pelvic floor. And that's something you could talk to your doctor about and see what they could refer you to. But Kegels is a great way to help strengthen your pelvic floor. So just a little FYI. So that's why I do Kegels all the time, because we're losing estrogen. And you can also talk to your doctor, your OBGYN. Prayerfully, you have a menopause specialist. Now they're everywhere, thank God. So we don't have to suffer in silence anymore, and talk to your OBGYN or your menopause specialist about things that you can do to help strengthen your pelvic floor. They have estrogen creams. I mean, if you're a candidate for that, that's why I say you have to talk to your personal doctor and see how they can advise you, because they know your personal health history and can tailor to your needs what, your symptoms and, what you need. So, movement is one of them. And then one more thing that we have to do, celebrate your wins. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. We celebrate the big wins. I got the big contract. I got the multi-million-dollar contract. We acquired this multi-million-dollar company. I got the promotion. I'm in the C-suite now. And those are great and they should be celebrated. How about celebrating, hey, I was able to go to bed on time all week and I got 7 hours of sleep and I feel rested. Hey, I stayed within my nutrition plan all week and I see the changes in my body. My skin is glowing. My nails are growing. My hair is growing. Hey, I've been moving my body and I feel better. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, ooh, baby girl, you looking good. You looking fine. Yes, I'm looking good in this suit. That's a win. That is a win. I said no this week and I took time for me, and I didn't have to wait for a Calgon take me away moment. I did that for me. I stopped at the park after work and just sat down and I was able to read a book, and I didn't come home to my family biting their heads off. That's a win. So remember, practice makes permanent, and small, consistent steps compound into big wins. And guess what the big win is overall? Sustainable leadership and a healthy leadership span. That's longevity leadership. Before we wrap up, I want you to take a moment to reflect on what stood out most in today's conversation. Leadership performance isn't built in dramatic moments. It's shaped by small systems you practice every day. If today's episode resonated with you, you'll find several resources in the show notes to help you go deeper. That includes the Executive Capacity Audit, which help leaders evaluate the biological and cognitive factors influencing their performance. You'll also find the link to join us in the Executive Longevity Community. And if you're watching this video, because the video will be on YouTube, if you're listening to it, look in the show notes for the link. But also, if you're watching me on YouTube and you see that banner at the bottom where it says join me inside the Executive Longevity Community, you'll find the link there also. And this is where I work directly with leaders who want to protect their decision quality, resilience, and long-term leadership capacity. It is going down in the lab, and the Executive Longevity Lab is where we explore evidence-based ways to increase executive capacity through recovery, awareness, and stewardship. If this episode helped you think differently about leadership and longevity, consider sharing it with another leader who might benefit from the conversation. And if you haven't already, follow the show so you don't miss future episodes. Episodes drop every Sunday. Until next time, protect your energy, protect your clarity, and lead for the long term.